Hello everyone, and welcome back to the garage. When I first started this channel, I had mainly intended it to focus on computer repair. And as you can tell by the videos I've been uploading recently, I've been dipping my hands into some other things like restoring pinball machines, and it's definitely been a lot of fun doing something different. But in this video, we're going to go back to do a classic computer repair. We're going to be taking a look at and repairing an original Macintosh from 1984. Let's get started. All right, here we have the original Macintosh from 1984. This was the first affordable computer to use a graphical user interface, and it is what was responsible for introducing the masses to the concept of a GUI instead of a text-based interface. Before this computer was produced, Apple had produced another computer called the Apple Lisa, but it was primarily focused on business and it cost around $10,000 new. So it was not something that was generally affordable to the home market, especially in 1983 money. So a year later, Apple introduced the Macintosh for a much lower price, and it contained a very similar graphical user interface to what was on the Lisa, and it was one of the first computers to use a mouse as one of its primary input devices. Computers before this generally treated the mouse as an optional accessory. On this, it came with the computer in the box. And even though I've never had one of these computers before, it's not new to me at all. I have plenty of vintage Macs from the 80s and 90s, and I have a couple other compact Macs as well. I have a Macintosh SE and a Macintosh Classic 2, both of which that I've done repairs in the past before I started this channel. So this is not new territory for me, but it is a new model that I've never opened up before. So we will take a look at the inside of this machine together. Now, this machine does not work. The seller said it powers on and then it gives a memory error. So what I assume that means is the moment we turn this on, we're going to hear the crash chime. It'll make a different sound if the machine crashes, and it will come up with the SADMAC error code indicating a memory error. That's what I think is going to happen. I don't know that for sure, but that's what the seller said, is that it has a memory error. So taking a look at this machine, it's really not in that bad a condition. It's dirty, but it's not terrible. It's yellowed, of course, and I know that these earlier machines did ship with more of a yellow color than the later Macintosh Plus, I think is when they changed it to be more of a platinum color. But this machine has yellowed a bit, but it's really in pretty good shape. So here we have the CRT. It is a 512 by 342 resolution monochrome CRT, and in my experience, these are really nice, clear CRTs that have a bright picture, so I expect this one to be nice and good. Here we have the floppy drive, and if this machine has not been upgraded, it will be a 400 kilobyte floppy disk single-sided drive. There was a kit that Apple made that you could upgrade this machine to a Mac Plus, and that involved swapping out the motherboard and I believe the floppy drive to an 800K double-sided variant. So we'll have to see if this machine has been upgraded. I hope not, because I would like to have an original Mac 128K motherboard. On the bottom of the machine, we have a dial here for controlling the monitor brightness, and we have the keyboard connector right here, which looks very similar to a 56K modem style cable connector, but it is not the same. If you plug a 56K modem cable from the Mac keyboard to this, it's going to damage your keyboard, so do not do that. It's nice to see that we have all 4 feet on this machine, so none of the feet have gone missing in all the years that it's existed. On the top here, we can see we have our ventilation holes, and every Macintosh up until the Macintosh SE was cooled just by convection, so there's no fan in here. The Mac SE was the first one to have a fan. Here we have our carrying handle, so you can carry this with one hand. That was a very distinct feature of these compact all-in-one Macs. Here's the back of the machine, and as you can see, this Macintosh is a later model because it actually denotes the memory size. So as you can see, this one has a badge that says Macintosh 128K. Now, the original Macintosh would have had a badge that just said Macintosh, and that's it. Well, the reason this one says 128K is because later in 1984, they introduced a model that had 512 kilobytes of memory instead of the original 128. And so that machine would have a badge that said Macintosh 512K, but they continued to sell the original 128 kilobyte model. So to distinguish it from the 512K, they added 128K to the badge here. So this is a later Macintosh, but it's identical to an original model. Right here we have our slot for the clock battery. Now, if I open the door, you can see, well, I don't know if you can see, but it's leaked. There's definitely corrosion in there. It's not horrible by the looks of things, but there's definitely a battery in there and it has definitely leaked over time. And some evidence of that is that this screw is very corroded. So I'm hoping that the motherboard in this machine is not damaged. It's a little dirty on the back. We got some dirt down in the bottom crevices here. So I'll definitely give this machine a clean up before we plug it in and test it out. And we'll go ahead and open it up too, just to inspect it. I know this machine has been powered on recently, but I still want to take it apart and inspect it in case I see something that I need to fix before powering it up again. On the back here, we have all our ports. This is the audio out, modem, printer, external floppy drive, which I do have, so we'll show that here in a minute, and the mouse connector. So very simple I/O for this computer. So that's the computer. Now, I did not receive just the computer. I actually received quite a bit more with this, and we'll be able to make a nice complete desk setup with this computer by the time I'm done. Let me show you what else I received with this machine. So here's the first thing I received. This is the original external floppy drive used with the original Macintosh. And as you can see, it looks very similar to the drive on the front of the machine. Now, if this thing works, that will be great because the original Macintosh, the 512K and the Mac Plus, which is the model that came after those two, they did not feature internal hard drives. So if you wanted to hook up a hard drive, you had to do it externally. So it'll be nice if this thing works because then I won't have to swap disks around, because if you use just the internal drive and you want to put in another disk, you'll have to do disk swapping. You'll have to swap between your boot disk and the other disk that you want to insert. So having a second drive is almost a necessity on these early Macs. And here's what the underside looks like. It has the model number MO130. And according to the serial number, it was manufactured on the 50th week of 1984. I also received the keyboard, of course. So this is the original Macintosh keyboard, and it's yellowed, but it's in pretty good condition. And no missing keys, everything's here. Sounds very nice. I had heard that these original Mac keyboards can be very echoey, and yes, it is echoey. Just listen to this. Don't know if you were able to hear that, but it does echo quite a bit. That's just how these were made. And this keyboard actually feels very nice to type on. I don't think it's a rubber dome keyboard. I think this is mechanical. So, very nice keyboard. We also have the cable here. Now, I did have to do a repair on this cable because this side, part of it had broken off, so I just wrapped a little bit of tape around it to keep it there. I didn't want to super glue it because then I didn't think it would fit in the connector. So now it's okay, and I think the cable will still work. Tilting the keyboard up, besides the dirt, you can see how dirty it is. Here's the keyboard connector here. And on the bottom, all the feet are still there. This keyboard is model MO110, manufactured 49th week of 1984. Now for this machine, I did not receive the original mouse, but I did receive this really nice and heavy-duty trackball. So got a big trackball here for our mouse and then two clickable buttons. Now if you're new to these older computers, this was way before the advent of right-clicking. So the reason I think that this has two click buttons is so it can accommodate both left-handed and right-handed users. So it would work perfectly for both use cases. And something that I thought was interesting about this trackball is it's got another mouse port on the back, so you can daisy chain devices to this. On the back, we can see who makes this trackball. It's a company called Assimilation Process, And yes, that is the company name. And all the feet are still there, and because this is not an Apple device, I can't decode the serial number that's on it, but it does say 1984 on the bottom, so we can assume this came out in 1984 or maybe early 1985. And now we're going to get to the things I received with this machine that you would not typically expect to see in a computer for sale. Software and manuals. How often do you see original software and documentation like this? So in this bag, we have a bunch of floppies, and most notably, the top one right here, this is the original Macintosh system disk. So this is the original Mac OS. And now I don't know if this is version 1.0, it could be 1.1 because it's a later Mac, but this right here is the very first distribution of Mac software. It came on one 400 kilobyte disk. Now, as you can see, these disks are very worse for wear, and it's very likely that at least one of these disks won't work. But I did go ahead and flip open the little protector, and the disk media itself is actually in very good condition still. So I think if I go ahead and clean these disks up, there's a chance they might still work. So I'm hoping for that. Right here we have the Mac Paint disk. This is the Paint program that came with the original Macintosh. We have the disc for MacWrite and Mac Paint Guided Tour. Now, this disc will not have audio on it because it is designed to be accompanied with a cassette tape, which will have the audio on it, and then you would sync this disc with the audio on the tape because this disc will actually contain video to show you how to use MacWrite and Mac Paint. So we'll have to put this in the machine and see if it works after we clean all of it up. Here we have some third-party discs for a program called PFS File. Now, I assume that it's some sort of file manager program. There's two discs and they look the same. So maybe they're identical. Maybe one's like a setup disk and the other's disk 2. I have no idea. We'll have to figure that out later. Now, these discs did have labels on them, but I don't know what they are because they're not there. Oh, we do have a disc with a label. This looks like a game. Hayden Software Sargon 3. I assume this is a game, and we'll have to see if that works, because that would be cool if we could have a working game on original media. And here we have a whole bunch of manuals, so let's go over what we have. In here we have a floppy disk, but I, for some reason, am not able to get it out. And you know what? I think this might be new old stock, because I'm looking at the label, and it looks like it is in pristine condition, like no dirt whatsoever. So I assume that this is a new old stock piece of software. So let me go ahead and see how I can get this out of here. There we go. Oh crap. The media, the little protector broke off. I know it's in there. I saw it. Okay, so now I can see what this is. This is an Apple II system disk for the Apple IIe, 2C, and 2C Plus. So this will be a boot disk for those Apple II models. Cool to have. See if I can get the cover out. It's like stuck. And that's why the disc was so hard to come out, is because the actual cover for the disc is like glued onto the side of the package. So I think I'm gonna have to cut this open to get that out. Or I can rip it open like any person would have done back in the day. I know it's gonna rip the paper a bit, but I have to get the disc cover out of there. There it is. I'll get that put back on the disc right now so it's protected. And there we go. I got the little protector back on and I attached the spring to the correct position. So now it spring loads properly. So that disc is now normal. And here we have a set of numbered sticky labels, 1 through 4. I'm not sure what these are for. My first thought was maybe they're to label like your disk drive, like to say drive 1, drive 2, but I'm not sure that's what these are because there's 4 of them, and usually when you have a Mac, the most drives you usually have is 2, so not sure what those are for. In terms of manuals, we have a unrelated manual to all of this, SuperVoice 2.0 for Microsoft Windows, so not really sure what this is. I just flipped to a random page. It looks like it might be some sort of modem and voice software. So we have the manual for that. We have a manual for MusicWorks for the Apple Macintosh by Hayden Software, so the same company that made that disk that we have there. So obviously that's some sort of music notation software, so maybe I'll create a disk image for that. And here we have the manual for that PFS file program, so now we actually have the manual plus the disks. Here we have the user's guide for the Apple II system disk. Now that's funny that they would create a huge user's guide for one disk, because for the Apple II, you would have a series of disks. So unless this goes over like the operating system and other stuff, it looks like it does. So this is familiar to me because I have an Apple II GS, so we can actually stick that disk in there and see if it'll boot. That'll be something we do later. Here we have the manual for the Apple modem 300/1200. And I didn't receive the modem with this machine, but I did receive its power adapter. So at some point, the modem got separated from the system, but if I ever find one of these modems, I will have the power adapter for it. And here's that power adapter for the modem. It's a 8 volts AC adapter, so that almost makes me think there's a little transformer in here because this is quite a heavy brick. So maybe the modem doesn't have a built-in like dedicated power supply and just uses this. Now this here is what made me think that maybe this machine has been upgraded, because we have the Macintosh Plus owner's guide. So it's possible that this machine was upgraded to a Mac Plus with a new motherboard and a new disk drive. I'm not going to complain regardless because I don't have a Mac Plus, so it'd be okay either way, but I would prefer the original board. Here we have the manual for ImageWriter, which is the basic word processing program that came with the computer. And I imagine that's what one of the unlabeled discs is ImageWriter, because we have Mac Paint, we have the guided tour of ImageWriter and Mac Paint, so I assume we have ImageWriter in that pile of discs somewhere. And here's the Mac Paint manual. This is a much smaller manual. It's a booklet instead of a spiral-bound notebook. So there's a lot less in here, but we still have a user's guide for Mac Paint. Now this is funny. Right here we have the Apple ImageWriter 2 owner's guide, which is a printer that Apple made. I actually received a printer with this machine, but it's not the ImageWriter 2. And we'll get to that as soon as we go over the rest of the documentation here. ImageWriter 2 packing list and limited warranty, I assume, for the ImageWriter 2. And then we have the ImageWriter 2 owner's manual. Didn't the other one say owner's guide? It did. Well, then what's the difference? ImageWriter 2 owner's manual, ImageWriter 2 owner's guide. Yeah, I have no idea. They look very similar. So maybe it's just an earlier version of the manual and a later version? I don't know. Well, maybe the experts on Apple part numbers will be able to answer that question. The one that says owner's manual has part 030-2002B. The other one is 030-0423A. So different manual, but I think it's basically the same. So I don't know why there's two of them, but there's two of them. And with that, that is all of the documentation that I received with the machine. So I actually received quite a bit. So now what I'll go ahead and do is I'll show you that printer. So here's the printer, and the reason I thought it was funny that we received the Apple ImageWriter 2 documentation is that this printer is an ImageWriter 1. So it's the original ImageWriter. And it did come with its interface cable, so we can actually hook it up to the computer and use it once we get everything working. So I did some looking around this printer, and it seems like basically everything's there, but I did notice that there's a piece that's supposed to go here, a little plastic cover that's missing. I don't think that's going to impact the functionality of the printer, but I'm going to try to track one of those pieces down and see if I can get one. This little clear plastic piece is just a little cover that goes right here that kind of just makes it so that the paper is lined up and comes out the right place. There is another cover here that has this on it, and this just pulls right off. And I did read that it is necessary to have this cover for the printer to actually operate, so I'm glad that I received at least that. So here's the inside of the printer. And as you can see, we do have an ink cartridge in here. So if this printer does work, we'll have to see if the ribbon in here is still wet. And there's the platen right there, and it is free. As you can see, I can turn the knob here on the side, and it will move the platen along with the tractor feed. So that seems like it's working. It sounds like it needs to be cleaned though. I can definitely hear a lot of metal against metal sounds when I do that. It doesn't look like it's had a ton of time on it. I mean, I can see some text in the platen from when it's printed. And just looking at the platen, I can make out a few phrases, like I can see the words, if anyone, and it looks like they're using kind of a fancy font. So we'll have to see if this works once we get the computer up and running, but it looks to be pretty good. It's got a little bit of dirt. It will definitely need to be cleaned up and maybe lubricated before I actually use it. But it looks like basically everything's there except for that one cover, so that is nice. And so with that, that is everything I received with the machine. I actually did receive another keyboard cable, but it's like a really long one. It's not the original. It's like this super massive long cable. So if the keyboard doesn't work, I think we can use that cable. This is the cable here. It's extremely filthy. So if I do end up using it, I'll have to clean it up. But it just occurred to me, this could be a modem cable and not a keyboard cable. So I might not be able to use this. So yeah, that I don't think that's a keyboard cable. I'm looking to see if there's writing on it that maybe denotes it as a modem cable. I don't see it. And even if there is, I don't think this is a keyboard cable now. So we'll have to use what we got. So now what we'll go ahead and do is take a look at each piece of hardware one by one, clean them up, and test them to see if they're working. So let's get started. So before we take a look at the machine itself, I do want to at least open some of the other devices and see if things look okay before we proceed to taking a look at the inside of the actual computer. So the first thing I want to look at is the keyboard. Now, I don't expect to find anything crazy wrong with this keyboard. I mean, everything's there. It doesn't look like it's had a ton of use. It's very dirty, as you've already seen. So it looks like there's 5 screws. So after I take those out, I should be able to open up the keyboard. All right, let's see what we have inside here. I would imagine it opens from the top. Yes, it does. Oh, nice, that comes right off. Yeah, look at the dirt in there. Pretty filthy. The keyboard portion looks good though. So let's go ahead and lift this out. Oh, there's the bottom cover. Okay, this keyboard is very easy to disassemble. Dirty in there, just a simple vacuuming and scrubbing with some soap and water will get these 2 pieces looking perfect. And as for the keyboard itself, let's take a look at the back. Oh, that looks great. Okay, there's probably not going to be anything wrong with this keyboard. But we do see some production line stickers in here, which is kind of funny. We have test, product inspection, and final. So those were obviously stuck on the keyboard PCB while it was going through production, so that's kind of nice to see. So all the solder joints down here look really nice. Is that a bug? I think that's a dead bug. This keyboard is definitely going to need to be cleaned up, but the keyboard itself looks great, so I have full confidence that this keyboard is going to work just fine. All right, I'm just going to take a brief look inside the trackball just because I want to see what it looks like inside. And I don't really expect to see anything because how much can really go wrong inside a pointing device? Not much. Yep, and that cover is already coming off, so let's take a look. Okay, it looks just fine. I figured, here's the little ball. Well, it's not little, it's a rather large plastic ball, and it is not hollow, so it actually has some weight to it. Definitely dirty. There are the buttons right here. Nice and clicky. And then here are the 2 sensors for up and down and left and right movement, which are controlled by the ball. And there's the rollers that the ball sits against so it can actually roll when you turn it. Yeah, just looking inside, nothing wrong with it except for some dirt. So yeah, nothing much in here. Couple chips, couple capacitors and resistors, and then just all the sensors. So that's all I wanted to look at, was just see, does it work? Does everything look good? And all the signs point to yes. I will take this thing apart and clean it, but for now, let's move on to the next thing. All right, now I want to take a look at the devices that we're going to look at for longer than 5 seconds. So we'll start with the external floppy drive. So just by looking at it, you can see it's in pretty good condition other than it just being a little bit dirty. So it looks like all we have to do to get in here is take off the 6 screws on the bottom, and then we should be able to take off the top cover and maybe the front cover too. It looks like a bottom cover is what comes off, so I'll flip this over. And there we go. Okay. There's the inside of the bottom cover. A little dirty. It will definitely get cleaned. So here's the inside of the drive, and it is upside down. Here's the cable. As you can see, it was mounted just like that, so that there's a strain relief, so you don't pull the cable right out of the device. There's no corrosion or oxidation on the metal on the bottom, which is good to see, so that's an indication that this drive is in good health. Although we won't really know that for sure until we take a look inside and inspect the heads. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep pulling this thing apart. Oh, the drive is actually free. Oh, well, if I remove the cable, there we go, look at that. That's the drive out. And so here's the inside of the actual drive plastics. But let's flip this over and see what we are dealing with. So there is the top side. Now the drive is situated in a caddy, but 3 of the 4 screws are missing on the side. There's little screw holes for the drive to sit in right here. I would imagine there's supposed to be another one there and then 2 more right here to actually hold the drive in, but I don't see any witness marks that indicate that there were screws actually there to begin with. So could this thing possibly have been held in with just 1 screw its entire life? With that screw removed, now we can slide the drive itself out of its caddy, and there is the actual drive. And just by looking at it how it is now, it looks to be okay. I see here on the side we have a date, February 1984. So this came out 1 month after the introduction of the Macintosh. So this drive is definitely an original 400 kilobyte single-sided floppy drive, because it doesn't look anything like the later 800K and 1.44 megabyte versions. It's a lot bigger, the stepper motor's a lot larger, and it's just a lot more hefty. And looking inside the drive, it actually looks pretty good. I don't see anything that looks bad. The head looks okay. There's only 1 head in this drive because it's a single-sided drive. I want to take this panel off, and there's probably a screw in the back. Yep, there is. So it looks like if I remove that screw, I can remove this top cover, and I can see that it slides back. So there's that. Yeah, that drive looks pretty nice. I mean, there's a little bit of dirt and dust in it, but I've seen way worse condition floppy drives, and this one is very good. I'm moving the manual eject mechanism, and it doesn't act like it needs lubricant. If you're not familiar with these Mac floppy drives, they eject the disks automatically, and that is unlike PC floppy drives where you have the button, but they do have a fail-safe in case the automatic eject doesn't work. In the front of the case, there's a little pinhole here that you can stick a paper clip into, and when you do that, it will hit right here, and there's a manual eject mechanism here. So you can still eject it if the automatic mechanism fails to work. And that's why there's 2 motors. One of them moves the head, and the other one ejects the disc. So that is what those are for. And it looks like you can straight up remove this cable from the drive. It's just in a little connector here, and that's just like the later drives. So yeah, just a little connector. It looks exactly like the one they use on the later drives. You can just pull that out, and then there's a little ground connection here. It's got a crimp. We can just pull that straight off. There we go. Now we have just the drive, and we can put the cable aside. So there are a couple things I would like to do to this drive before I put it back together. I want to see if the head is dirty, and I also want to see if the mechanism actually needs to be lubricated, and all we need to do for that is just put a disc in it and see if it loads the disc properly. I've had plenty of later 800K and 1.44 megabyte drives that needed lubrication like crazy. We will see if this one needs it. So one thing you always want to do before you test a floppy drive that you don't know if it works, you want to clean the head or heads, if it's a double-sided drive, with some isopropyl alcohol on a Q-tip. So I'm just going to rub that against the head here. It doesn't look very dirty, but looks can be deceiving. Oh yeah, the head was perfectly clean. That was just fine. You still need to do it, even though if it looks clean, it might be dirty. I haven't ran across too many drives with very dirty heads, but still, you always want to make sure that the head is clean, because if you have a slightly dirty head, it won't read the disk. And I had a drive where I had one of those floppy disk cleaners that you put the alcohol into and then you stick it into the drive and it'll kind of clean it. That worked sometimes. It wasn't until I actually took apart the drive and wiped the head, and I didn't get any dirt off that drive either. This was from an old laptop from the 80s that I did this to. I cleaned the head, virtually no dirt came off of it, and then the drive was super reliable after that. So you always want to make sure that you clean the head before you do any sort of testing with it. All right, now we'll test and see if the loading mechanism needs lubricant, and for that all we have to do is put in a disk. And I'll put in this Apple II system disk. Even though it's a double-sided disk, it's still the same form factor as a 400K disk. So I'll go ahead and put this in here and we will see if it loads. That wasn't promising. Oh yeah, it does need lubricant. You see how this mechanism right here, oh wow, that's bad. See, that should rebound right back. This is the little device that opens the floppy shutter. When you put the disk in, let's see if I can make it do it. It didn't do it the first time. See how it opens the shutter? So that is what that's designed to do, and it is very gummed up. So if this is not lubricated, when the disk ejects, it will not actually pop out, because this is what's responsible for popping the disk out. So you can see, barely even moves. So I just need to spray a little bit of lubricant in the shaft here, and that should be nice and free again. That is how it should be. It should rebound just like that. So you can see, simple little squirt of lubricant can fix these drives and make them nice and active again. We'll go ahead and put a disk in there now, and we'll see if the loading mechanism itself needs to be lubricated. My guess is probably. Oh yeah, it does. You see how it barely made any noise when it loaded? When you put the disk in there, it should go down with a nice thunk. So we didn't get that, so obviously it needs lubrication. But you can see how I pushed the manual eject and the disk popped right out. That's because we lubricated this. If I didn't lubricate that, I would probably have to pull the disk out with my hand. So that is how you know you need to lubricate your drives. So let me show you that again so you can see what a non-lubricated drive looks like when it tries to load a disk. Like, it should be going down when I do that. You see, it's not even going down. Oh, there it went, but it did not want to go down. When you push the disk in, before you even push it in all the way, like at this point, it should have gone down and did a nice thunk. So we need to lubricate all the moving parts of the loading mechanism. As you can see, this drive is just having a lot of trouble loading. So I am going to have to lubricate the moving parts of the mechanism. Now this drive is a little bit different than an 800K drive, so I kind of have to analyze it here and just see which parts of the mechanism actually move when the disk goes down. So I'm just going to take a look real quick. It looks like it's mostly on the inside of this drive. This side, you can actually see it a little bit better. So if I push the eject, you can see we have a little rail here, we have a part there, and we have a part right here. So if I lubricate those along with some other moving places like here and maybe here, the other side I don't see a ton that needs to be lubricated, but I'll probably spray some just kind of in here. And then after I do that, the drive should load much better. Okay, I've lubricated all of the moving parts that are a part of the loading mechanism. So there's a bunch of different points around here on this side that you have to lubricate, along with a few over on this side. And so now, when you put a disk in, this is what a lubricated drive should sound like. See that? Makes a nice clunk, and the disk goes down immediately. That's how it should be. So the drive is now lubricated, and it will actually load and unload disks correctly. And so now all I have to do is just give this drive a little bit of a clean on the inside. There's just a tiny little layer of dust in it. It's nothing serious, so I can just spray that out with a dust can, do some light wiping and vacuuming, and this drive should be ready to go. I went ahead and I cleaned up the outer case. So if I go ahead and separate the two halves here, you can see they're all nice and clean now. And I went ahead and cleaned up the metal parts as well. So after I give this drive a little bit of clean, I'll put it all back together and it'll be good to go. So I think what we'll do at this point is we'll save the printer for last, because I don't have any other machine that I can hook it up to besides the 128K Mac. So let's go ahead and start taking a look at the computer itself and see what we need to do to get it working again. All right, let's go ahead and open this thing up and see what it looks like on the inside. Now, I'm not sure what I was thinking earlier about this thing possibly having been upgraded to a Mac Plus, because the Mac Plus has a SCSI connector on the back for if you want to hook up an external drive, which this does not have. So this is absolutely an original Macintosh board in here, so that's cool to see. So to open one of these, the earlier Macintoshes, I think up until the Mac SE, had 5 screws instead of 4. There's 2 screws here, and then there are 2 screws very deep within the handle here, and then there's one more underneath the battery holder compartment right there, and they are all Torx T15 screws. So for these 3, you can just use a normal Torx 15 screwdriver to get them out because they're right there. And then to get the screws in the front, they are way deep down, so a regular Torx screwdriver like this will not fit. So you'll have to either get a really long one, or what I have done to get these things open is take a socket wrench, put a couple extensions on it, and then put a T15 bit on the front, and this will work. So I kind of just put this in there like that, and I can tell it went onto the screw. So now I can just loosen it either by doing that or going like this. And once it's loose, there it is right there. So now with all those removed, the back cover should come straight off pretty easily. So let's see what it looks like inside. This one might be a little hard because it's got some dirt around the edges and it's probably never been opened. So let's take a look and see if I can get this to come off. If you're trying to do this on a later compact Mac, like the Macintosh Classic or Classic 2, it might be a little harder to get the panel off, I've noticed, but usually on these earlier compact Macs, it's not super hard, although I am kind of having trouble with this one. Wow, this thing's pretty tight on there. And one thing you can kind of do as well is once you kind of get it started, you can kind of just push against the 2 halves like that. As you can see, we got it the front off. So let's see now if we can get the back portion, this side of the cover off. With one side off, it'll be much easier now to get the rest of it off. Yep, there we go. Okay, so now it's off. Let's open her up and see what she looks like. Oh, good heavens. Lots of corrosion. I see we have something here. This was supposed to be like that, but it's got so much corrosion, it just broke off. So yes, the battery that was in here did quite a number on the metal inside this machine. So I'm gonna have to gut this machine fully, because as you can see, the amount of corrosion here, there's a whole bunch of rust, there's more of it down there. I mean, I don't see any on the actual board. The analog board here, this is what controls the power supply and the monitor power. It doesn't look that bad, at least on this side. I don't see any corrosion on the board itself. It's just on the metal around the board. So it's possible that this machine somehow survived a really bad battery leakage. But yeah, I'm taking a look at it. It definitely leaked quite a bit throughout the entire metal enclosure. I'll go ahead and just rotate it over here like that. And I had a feeling that this was going to be the case because there was corrosion on the screw down here. So I had a feeling that this thing was going to be heavily corroded. I mean, there's cobwebs in there too. I'm looking at the logic board, at least the part that I can see, and I don't see any huge battery corrosion, but I'm gonna have to go ahead and take everything out of this thing, including the CRT, and that'll also make it really nice to clean the front and back cover. I can just rinse them in the sink. So I'm gonna go ahead and start gutting this machine completely. So now that the screws are free, this little metal shield can just come right off. This is very similar to the shield on newer compact Macs, but it'll be a little bit bigger on those. As you can see, we got some corrosion damage on that too. This isn't a super necessary piece, but it is a form of shielding, so I'm going to try to clean that up a bit. So right here we have our floppy drive, but I'm not going to remove that just yet. I think the next thing I want to remove is the actual motherboard, because it's got some dirt on the bottom of it. The bottom of the board actually looks really nice, so this board might actually still work. I mean, it looks like perfect on the back, which is very fortunate considering what has gone on here. So to get out the motherboard, we have to unplug the power connector that goes from the analog board to the motherboard. And we also have to unplug the floppy drive cable. But before I do that, I'm gonna clear out that cobweb because it is right in my way. And yes, this is very similar to a later Mac like the SE. The connectors look a little different, but it's virtually the same. So there's the floppy connector, and I'll go ahead and remove the power cable. There we go, there's that. Oh, that is rough. There we go. Well, there's our first look at the board, and it's dirty, that's for sure, but I don't see any major corrosion. This is just dirt, so that'll come right off with some vacuuming. Yeah, this board is absolutely savable. We are very fortunate here. The battery leaked, but it didn't get to the board, so we are in very good shape here. I mean, there's definitely quite a bit of dirt on this board, but these boards are generally very reliable, and it looks like we don't have any serious corrosion on anything. There might be a little bit on this chip here. I can see a little bit of bluish gunk right there. So there's a little bit, but I think I can get this board cleaned up and make it look pretty nice. So that's the logic board. This is an original 128K board, and if you look on the other side here, you can see they marked it for either a 128K model or a 512K, and this is a Mac 128K motherboard. So this is what an original Macintosh motherboard looks like. So the next thing we'll do is we'll take out the floppy drive, and to me, it looks like it's mounted with 4 screws. If I turn this around here, looks like these 4 are what keep the drive in. I don't think these 4 are for the drive, but I might be wrong. So I'll go ahead and remove those 4 screws, and the floppy drive should come out. And I didn't even see the corrosion that was down here. Look at that. So it leaked right down to where the motherboard was, but somehow the motherboard on this survived really, really well. So I think we'll be able to get this Macintosh running. But because you can see all the dirt, corrosion, and the cobwebs that are in here, I'm gonna have to gut this machine fully so I can clean it out, because I want this thing to look nice on the inside and the outside. I cannot leave all this dirt in it. I can see dead bugs and dirt in the bottom of the front cover here. So this thing has to be completely gutted so I can wash it. So with those 4 screws removed, the floppy drive is indeed free. So I'll go ahead and just pull it out here. And there we go. The floppy drive is situated inside this caddy. It's very dusty. It's in the loaded position for some reason. So let's see, can I check it? Oh, that thing is frozen. Okay, yeah, good thing I didn't power this machine on. The manual eject is frozen solid. So this drive is going to be kind of a challenge to get working because that cannot be stuck. Because if it tries to auto eject a disk, it's basically going to get stuck and maybe break even some of the gears responsible for that. So once I get this thing kind of cleaned up and we start putting it back together, I'm going to take this drive apart and we're going to see if we can get it to work. Okay, the next thing we'll do is we'll take out the analog board. And to do this, this is not something that you should do if you don't know what you're doing, because it's going to involve removing the CRT. So if you've never discharged a CRT or worked around a CRT or anything high voltage related, I would suggest stopping here and letting someone who's more experienced do this work. But since I've worked around this stuff before and I'm pretty comfortable with it, I am going to discharge the CRT. It probably doesn't have any charge in it, but I'm going to check just so I'm safe. So what you can do to discharge a CRT very fast is, I should probably rotate this so you can see what I'm talking about. So in the CRT, we have the anode cap right here. And so this is where the high voltage goes into the CRT. And so you will want to discharge the connections inside this anode cap. So what you have to do to be safe, this is kind of the crude way to discharge a CRT. I don't really have a proper like high voltage tool to do this with, but if you want to do this just very quick and dirty, take a screwdriver and make sure it's well insulated. As you can see, this one has a pretty big rubber handle. Take a clip lead, connect it to the screwdriver, and then connect the other end of the clip lead to a ground source. So that can be the chassis. So we can do this right here. Where can I connect it? Right there. So we have a source for the voltage to go. So if the CRT still has voltage stored in it, it'll go through the screwdriver to ground instead of through you. So make sure that you keep your other hand kind of behind your back when you do this, and you want to stick the screwdriver into the anode cap until it hits the two little metal connections that are on the inside of the cap. If there is charge in there, it'll kind of make a spark a little bit, but I don't think it's going to do that because this machine has been off for quite a while, so I don't think it's going to have any charge in it. I'm just going to rotate it to the side here. Easier for me to do this. So make sure your other hand, oh, well, the anode cap actually just kind of came off a little bit. So I'm just going to kind of stick this in here, feel for those connections. Okay, I feel it touching them. And there's no charge in here because if there was, there would be a spark, and the anode cap was actually very loose on that. Let's see about those connections in there. I might have to tweak those. But this is still something you have to be very cautious about. So the anode cap's removed, but I'm just gonna double check and make sure we don't have any voltage. We do not, as you can see. If we did, we would have sparks. So there is no voltage here. All the high voltage has been drained, so the CRT is safe to handle. So once you get to this point, you can be assured that no high voltage is in the CRT. And so after that, the next thing you wanna remove is the CRT neck. Now, later Mac models, well, there will be a little board here. This one just has a little connector. So be very careful when removing this so you don't break the glass tube. If you do, that will destroy the CRT permanently. So kind of rock that off until it comes off. You can see the little pins that connect it. So take that off. And so to get this board out, we need to remove a couple ground straps. So the first one is going to be right here. This one's right in the middle of some corrosion. Let's see if we can get that screw to turn. Oh yeah, that turned pretty quick. So yeah, this machine isn't the worst I've seen. I've seen way worse corroded motherboards and machines, but this is one of the bad ones. But as you can see, we are able to get stuff to come free. So I think we'll be able to get this machine to work. The other ground strap is one of the screws that holds the CRT in place. So we'll have to remove that as well. And then finally, we'll remove the connector that goes from the analog board to the neck, and that has this ground strap on. There we go. So now that can be removed from the system because the ground strap has been freed. And so now at this point, I believe the analog board can be free. This is a little bit different from the other compact Macs that I deal with. So maybe this one's a little bit more involved. It looks like it's got some screws on the back that hold it in. You can see here we have a plastic shield that covers this board because there are high voltages on this board. There's the speaker right here, and as you can see, we have some adjustments for voltage, the CRT height, the width, the cutoff, which is basically like your sub-brightness control, and then the monitor's focus. So that is where you would adjust all of that. And on later machines, this shield will be held on with little black plastic clips. This one just has some double-sided tape. So I'm going to remove this shield so I can get access to screw. Actually, you know what? The screw's right there. So I actually don't have to remove this, never mind. So it looks like to remove just this board, it's these two screws right there and this one here. Looks like I can just pop this out. Yep, here we go. It's free for the most part. No, there's another connector here that goes to the CRT yoke. So I have to remove that, then it'll be free. There we go. So there's the analog board. We'll take a look at this in a little bit. Okay, so now what we'll do to get a little more room in this machine is we'll go ahead and remove the actual CRT. So we already removed one of its screws to get the ground strap out. So we just have to remove the other three that hold it on in the corners, and the CRT come right out. Oh, this should just pop out nice and easy. There it is. So now we can really give this CRT a clean. You can see on the front there, it definitely needs to be cleaned up. So that'll be nice and easy to clean. I'll go ahead and set this somewhere safe. All right, so the last thing that you need to remove in order to just get the front cover by itself is the metal chassis. and it's just got several screws that hold it on. It looks like 5. And once I remove those, this metal piece should just come right off, and then we'll be left with only the front cover. All right, this should come off easy. Well, it would if there wasn't corrosion, but yeah, that came off pretty easy. Look at that. That is not what you want to see inside your computer. So this looks terrible, and so what I'm gonna do is run this through the sink and get all of this dirt off, and I'm going to take a Brillo pad to it so we can get most of the rust and corrosion off. And I know that's not going to eliminate it entirely, but it's going to make it look much nicer, and it's not going to look like it just suffered from a huge battery leakage. I mean, it'll still kind of look like this, but it'll look a lot better. And so this is all we have left, just the front cover. So this can be washed in the sink, and it needs it really badly because, as you can see, it's got dirt and broken pieces and dead bugs everywhere. So this thing's gonna need a good wash. I already went ahead and cleaned up the trackball, keyboard, and floppy drive, and those look way better. So I'm gonna do the same process to the cover, the front and the back to this computer, and they are gonna look as close to brand new as they are gonna get. They're still gonna look yellowed. All this dirt and crud in here is gonna be all gone. And I can even see some corrosion in there. I see the green crusties up by where the monitor sat. So it's a good thing that we opened this up and took it completely apart. So I'm gonna go ahead and start the cleaning process, and we will try to resurrect this machine and get it to live again. And that's gonna be it for part 1. We took a look at all of the external peripherals of the Macintosh, including the mouse, keyboard, and external floppy drive. I cleaned those up, and now they're all nice and ready to go. But once we opened the computer itself, we saw that it had succumbed to a massive battery leakage. So I had to gut everything inside the machine and clean everything up. And so now I finished up doing that. As you can see, I've got the analog board sitting here. And that is what we're going to look at in part 2. We're going to look at all the components in the machine, all the boards, we'll get the floppy drive working, and we'll see if the system actually can start. And if it's got problems, we will get them fixed. So look forward to the actual repair process in part 2. And with that, I will see you in my next video.